Experts Club. Ben, quick question for you. Is Ben short for anything?
It is short for Benjamin.
Makes sense. Thank you. All right, here I am with Ben, short for Benjamin. Taryn is not short for anything. And we are back in another Awesome Ops Experts Club here to discuss what was a thrilling conversation with Gian Lemmy last week, who is the social media coordinator, who is now moving up to a project manager for John Acuff at Acuff Ideas. That was a fun conversation. We hadn't spoken to anybody on the social media side yet. We don't work a lot with social media people, so it was really cool to hear some of the things he was talking about. What do you think, Ben?
I think it was hilarious how much he talked about. I'm just a college tennis coach. But I'm the one thing I didn't get to ask him, which I was curious about, is what got him started down the social media path, like on while he was still coaching, was like, why he started his own podcast and Instagram reels and all that sort of stuff. Because was it a hobby or was it looking to start his own thing? It was I wish I could have asked him that, because that was really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can send him an email if you want.
I know that answer. I just came in. I just promised Taryn I wouldn't come in hot anymore, but I've got that answer. Hey, good to see everybody. Ops Experts Club. I love seeing everyone.
Welcome, Aaron.
So Gian started doing it just as modeling after other people he had seen that were doing something. He just wanted to try something new and try and get out there. And it started as something that was like little tips and tricks to help with this or help with that. And then it actually became a thing, but he really was, I felt like he was being really modest about it on the show, but he really modeled a lot of what he was doing after John. He had been watching John for a long time, following John for a long time, impressed with John for a long time. And John's whole thing is all about goals, setting goals for yourself. He's got a book called Finish. It's about finishing what you start. Like John, of all the people, of all the visionaries that we serve, I feel like is the most dialed in dude that I know. You know what I mean? Like he'll come into challenges and he's written everything out for all the content for all the days of the challenge. You know what I mean? Like handwritten. So it's like 26 pages of voluminous, and for he's just a writer. He's an author. You know what I mean? So that's what he does really well. That's his craft. And I think that Gian really keyed into some of that, and it really inspired him to take it to the next level, which is crazy because that's actually why in the middle of that whole recruiting program, as we were meeting with interviewing all these people for Gian's role, he stood out like such a sore thumb because he actually had been imitating John for a long time. And so he was already speaking the language in his own life. So it made the translation really easy to think about, well, who's going to kill it? That guy who's actually been doing it on his own, and he really has. He's taken it to the next level just by getting practice.
That's really funny to think that he didn't realize he was creating his own resume when he was just doing something for fun. I just didn't realize that for years he'd been building up a resume to get a job for the guy that he really liked.
And I'll tell you this. So I was on the call when his name came up, right? Because we had the recruiting project going. You had to find this replacement. The gal who was doing Gian's role was taking another full-time job someplace else. She'd been doing it part-time for John. She was taking a full-time gig. She's an amazing lady. Her name's MC. Incredible at what she does, but she was passing on those duties, sort of trying to fill this role. And we had been interviewing a bunch of people. And so Gian's name kind of got thrown out there as a last minute ringer of suggestions. And it was, Ashley was like, hey, what about that guy that gave you a ride? That was that tennis coach. It was this total random thought of Ashley's that threw into the pot. And it's just crazy to watch the origin of something that Gian had made such a big impact on John in a car ride as he was giving him tours around Liberty or whatever before he spoke on stage, or however that all worked out, whatever the event was. And I think that it's just crazy how things come together of be the person who's going to inspire other people, even in the seemingly low bar things. Like Gian said, if they would have been hired for a janitor, I think I would have applied for that. You know what I mean? Just because Gian is Gian, no matter how Gian shows up. You know what I mean? Wherever Gian shows up, he's Gian. And I think that was the powerful thing is he gave John a ride around for his speaking gig, but made such a big impact that it led to this cadence of, oh, wait a minute, what's that guy doing? Oh, wait a minute, he's already doing those things? Oh, wait a minute, that looks already a lot like John's stuff. Oh, wait a minute, yeah, that's the guy. Look at that guy, how driven he is. But he could have known none of those things, when he applied. It was just all the back work that he had been doing up to that point. So it's pretty cool.
So I will say too, it's a proof of concept when it comes to finding a way to do something that you love and do it as a career. Like, I mean, this was something that social media was something that he obviously enjoyed doing just on his own while he was a tennis coach. So he's found a way to like be able to make a career out of doing the things that he really likes doing and is really good at. Like, you have to kind of enjoy social media and posting and creation and content creation, because if you don't enjoy it, like it's gonna show in your work. So he found a way to do what he really enjoys, and then all of a sudden he's got a career out of it now by just being consistent and doing something he likes.
That was, I love, that's the reel that Jesh pulled to. I don't know if you guys saw the reel that Jesh pulled that we dropped for this morning for promoting Ops Experts Club today. But that was actually the reel that he pulled on. So many people get stuck into doing what they think they always have to do. And you see 80-year-old tennis coaches out there because they feel like that's all that they knew how to do, instead of like recalibrating and reconsidering. And don't tell yourself you can't. And I think, sideline conversation, John had reached out to me and said, hey, we need to probably start thinking about hiring for a project manager. I think Gian could do really good at this though, don't you? And then maybe we could offset some of his other roles, things that he had been hired into that he already didn't feel qualified to do, in doing the things he was doing. And now we're moving him into a totally new thing because of how well he showed up in the last thing. And I think, we all know that, right? It's not going to school to get all the right skills. It's not even like everything brushed up on your resume just perfect. A lot of times it's who you know, how they know you, how you've been showing up for that next big thing you're trying. And I think that challenge by Gian was so good about, don't tell yourself you can't. Like that, you're already self-limiting. So
yeah. I really like seeing that it still proves the concept of it's better to hire somebody who wants your job than somebody who wants a job. Even if he had less experience, he wanted this specific job. He didn't just want a job. He wasn't going to look for a job if it wasn't this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, he had a great gig. You know what I'm saying? Like his being the tennis coach at Liberty, like that's, well-paying gig, had insurance, had benefits, had like future, had all these things, but it was like, they escalated him there too. Like you shared on the show, like they escalated him up into that admin role of being over that whole program, which is so powerful just to watch. It wasn't only in John's world, it was the elevation of Gian wanting to be that person, seeing the job he wanted, and not just the job that was vacant, but even just like to your point, Taryn, like how can I backfill? How can John get more time back by not having to think about these things, by passing them down and looking for somebody that's looking to step into next level things? That's the whole origin story for Delegate Elevate too, right? Is we should be looking for opportunities of how we can elevate, and by delegating down so that other people behind us can elevate too, creating opportunities.
Yeah. And there's even things he's figured out in his own roles now that he could be delegated. Like he can still be social media manager without actually having to schedule the posts after they've been created. There's still things that could be delegated down.
100%. And I think, half of what we do with the CoLab team, and I think you and Ben do an excellent job at this. We come into businesses and we help them with their operations, but we hold a space. We hold a space and SOP out the roles, because the real truth is you can't hand off anything until you've created a standard operating procedure to hand it off, and then I think that's the beauty of the thing is if you're not super happy with everything you're doing right now, the fastest way to get it off your plate is create a standard operating procedure and start looking across the field on how can I offset that. And I think Kimberly from Rainmakers is a great example of that too, where, I know she's hired in a couple of VAs underneath her, even though she really just bills her own time, and it's actually banged down what her hours are that her commitment is necessarily to Rainmaker, but she realizes these shouldn't be my tasks. And we don't necessarily have somebody on the field right now that could do them, but this isn't my highest level of brilliance. And I've been doing this so long, it shouldn't be me anymore, so let me SOP these things out. And then, kudos to Kimberly going out and finding on her own dime somebody that can do them at a lesser rate. And then that way it gives her time back and actually saves the company money. And I think I think we all should be looking for those things of what is your highest brilliance? What is it that you love most? What is it that makes you feel most alive? We all have parts of our job that we don't like or don't particularly love. Awesome. SOP those ones out. And let's be thinking about how we can get those off of our plate, because we want any employer out there is going to want you achieving your highest level of brilliance. They want best bang for their buck.
Mhm.
And if this is what you're really good at, that's where they want you to put in your time, not the mindless stuff that you've been just like holding space with. So I think super good word, team.
Very fair.
Yep. Good stuff, Aaron. The other thing we liked about GN is getting to see like somebody who's evolving in the role. And a lot of these people we've talked to, they all fit into the category of they weren't even really hired for the role they're moving into. Like a lot of them start low and then prove themselves and their commitment and their work ethic and their ability to learn and adapt and travel within the company, different directions, and they get up into higher and higher roles. And we're starting to see that with him as well, with his new position.
I feel like that's something that you can't always see, right? Like, I think that that's stuff that you can, like, I think that's a mind shifts, like change. I remember when I used to work at the credit union, there was and I was doing project management there before I started Collab team, obviously before the origin story of now, like we have 15 players on the Collab team. We're carrying all these powerful clients, like things you could never know, right? I'm working a credit union, project manage it slash construction project management, right? So new buildings, which is not my passion. I don't necessarily love that, but was doing it. And I remember I met with their financial planner within the credit union because they offer this benefit where the credit union would let you meet with one of their people. And so I sat down with him and I really liked him. The guy's name is Andrew Staley. He's a great guy. He's doing financial advising now, I think off on his own in Idaho. But anyway, I remember sitting down with him and we were talking about trajectory. And I was thinking, how much can I really afford? The credit union was doing a matching program. And I'm like, yeah, but bro, I'll be honest. Like, I don't know how much I can even put towards 401k. I've got 4 young kids. Like it's cool that they want to match, but how much money can I give? And he said, yeah, but this is the way you got to think about it is it's not going to always be like this. So be thinking about your money making window is these years to these years. And I would say probably in this next set of years is where you're going to really start rolling into making more dollars out of what you do. So be thinking forward now on how you can load, not only for now, but for future. And I remember sitting there thinking about the time and, when you're in a place, it's hard to visualize yourself in someplace other, because all you know is what you know around you. You wake up, you feel the same, all of us, put our pants on the same way, one leg and then the other. I'm saying? Like you get into these rhythms and it's like, that's just the life that and it's hard to visualize your life as something else, something other. But thinking back now about that conversation I had with Andrew Staley, probably 15 years ago now, it's crazy to think about like where things have become and how things have evolved. But I do think you're right, Taryn, like thinking towards future growth, asking the questions about where do I want to be, not just where am I stuck at now or what does it have to be now, but future growth and future evolution is powerful.
Mhm.
Confidence around it too. I think a lot of, we talk a lot about people. Most ops people say, they have imposter syndrome in the position that they're at, but finding a way to get over that and have the confidence to say, I can do this. I think just about all the people we've talked to on Ops Experts Clubs have been people who are like, I'll figure it out. I can do that. I can figure it out. It's not like, sorry, I didn't go to university for 4 years to discover that. I don't think I can do that. It's all the same mindset of like, well, I could probably figure that out. Yeah, I could do that. Just give me some time. I'll figure it out and then I'll make it better. It's a totally different mindset of versus, like, I don't think I can do that. I'm probably not the right person for that. You could probably find somebody or something better. Like having that confidence, looking at that future goal saying, I could probably figure that out. Yeah, it'll take some time, but I'll get there. I'll figure it out and I'll get there. And then once I'm there, I'll be like, dang, I did it.
Mhm.
Not to knock university and not to knock college. I think that obviously education and university and all those things, I think that they're a space holder. Personally, I feel like it's the evolution of a person beyond high school where maybe they just need a few more years to really like tighten up, like what is it they want? Where is it they want to go? And man, sure, plug yourself in some place where you can maybe gain some knowledge, see more of the world, do some study abroad, do some things that maybe are going to expand your horizon. But I will say, unless you're headed into a really technical field that requires you to do school, my experience level has shown with most of the people that we recruit for but definitely the people that we work for, those aren't necessarily people that have been formally trained in the things that they do. Like that's just not the space we're in, you know? So especially when it comes to operations, maybe if you're doing operations for a hospital, like then, I mean, you probably are going to need some kind of chops to do with something medical. But I think that majority of gigs that we fill for people and see people ascend, to Terrence's point of like ascend up the food chain from down lower and just working their way up in it, it's because they've proven themselves to be thinkers. Jamal Miller, one of our high level retainers right now, Miller Media Group, we're recruiting for a position for him, and he wrote a little thing at the beginning about this position that we're recruiting. It actually kicks off today. Drew's kicking it off. But the title in his little intro paragraph, he says, "I'm looking for a thinker." You know what I mean? And I thought that such an interesting way to put it. You know, you don't see in most of the recruiting projects we have, you know, you put out a job description, people apply, but Jamal took some time to really put some thought into what he's looking for. And he's like, I'm looking for a thinker, somebody who can come alongside of my thoughts, but also bring unique thoughts themselves. And I thought, that's interesting, because then it's not, you're not trying to fill like a widget maker. You know what I mean? I just need you to come and punch out these widgets. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
once you punch out these widgets really well, then you can move up to the next level where you punch out a couple different kinds of widgets. You know what I mean? But it's like, no. I need you to be free thinking on what am I not thinking through right now, right? Because any visionary that's humble enough to honestly say it out loud, they realize they've only got one brain. You know what I mean? So how can I employ other people's brains to help move the whole forward? And I think that's when you see some really cool, innovative stuff. So I'm excited to see what Jamal's position produces, but it's also cool to see just the trajectory of somebody like a Gian, somebody like a Kimberly, like we've been talking about, where that's not what they were hired for. But because they're thinkers and because they're innovative, they're actually moving up the food chain pretty quick, which is pretty powerful.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, especially in the space that we're in the online business world. Like, you need a team that's going to be flexible and fast and to be able to innovate in the space quickly. Like, you don't, like, a widget maker is almost the antithesis of what you want when it comes to this space. You know, you don't want somebody who's be like, sorry, this is all I can do. I can't do anything else. All I know how to do is write emails. You want somebody who can like write emails and maybe review social media posts, and somebody who wants to expand and think about what they're doing, because that just makes your organization that much quicker to stay ahead of the competition, that much quicker to innovate and be able to flexibly change with that innovation. The last thing you want is some guy on your team who's just going, no, this is how I did my last job, you know, and they were successful.
Mhm.
So that's how we got to do it here.
Yeah, people don't realize when they're working for these small companies, if they've never worked for one, you're growing with the business. You're not growing in the business. So there's not a clear path forward for you. You're with the business now, and the business is moving forward together, going from 5 employees to 10 to 20 to 50. And so you really need to have a little bit of like, words are escaping me right now, but
Some ability to flex, some ability to,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, a little bit of adventure in you with the company, because it's not straightforward. You're not stamping widgets. You need to think.
Yeah. I was on a interviewing call yesterday. We were in the second interviews. You know, they had gone through our recruiting process, and they had, you know, when we do recruiting for clients, we'll, you know, take the 50 applicants or whatever and knock them down to the top 10 or 15. And then somebody on our team will interview those top 10 or 15 and then shake up the top 2 or 3. And then I'll sit on second interviews with the hirer that's doing it, the leader in the organization. I was on one yesterday, and it was actually with Jamal's organization for a different position they're hiring for. And his director of ops said something really interesting, which, Taryn, we got to make sure, let's put her name down because I think she'd be awesome. Her name's Amanda. From Jamal's organization, Miller Media Group. Anyway, she said to this gal that we were interviewing, she said, just so you know, this is a can-do like environment in Miller Media Group, which means like we just need you to be able to come in, and we can't have people say, yeah, I don't do that. Like, that's not what we're looking for here. What we want you to be able to say is, hey, I've never done that before, but I can give that a try. You know, like, we're looking for people that are willing to take that. And I think it's something the 3 of us probably take for granted, because all of our origin story was pretty similar when it came to people giving us opportunities that we probably didn't deserve in the first place. You know, like, I think for you guys, it was with Wes at Roasters, where like you came up as baristas and you came up doing things, and then like more and more responsibility was handed to you in a small to medium-sized business that actually grew to a pretty large business, you know, to over 150 employees. And like, 15 locations in a roastery. Like it became something, but it started small. And I think Wes was the kind of entrepreneur that was like, he didn't want to do all that different kind of work, especially things he wasn't good at. So handed it first to Taryn, and then Taryn, obviously you exited, and that's when we inherited you at the collab team. Best thing that ever happened to us. And then you handed it down to Ben, and then Ben took on things that probably weren't necessarily things you were formally trained to do, or anybody had necessarily taught you to do. It was just like innate skill set that was cultivated by an entrepreneur over time, and said, hey, I don't want to do this, go take it and make it work. And then you were thrown into a situation where you're like, okay, like, and you just ran with it. And I think for me, it started with skateboard snowboard shops, as a kid. And I remember it was one of my first jobs outside of work in construction for my dad, was working these retail stores. And it was the owners then, the Fahills, gave me opportunities that I was like, you want me to do that? Oh, sure, I'll do that, and jumping into it and realizing as you take those steps, it actually cultivates this new thing in you of, I could do that. Yeah, I just did those things. I can surely do the next things. And I've watched it even in David, as we sent him down to help tag out Drew with the Coffee Experts Elite down in Belize. David's been down there this last month, taking over for Drew, kind of managing, and helping them raise up leaders and setting the right culture, all the things we do for coffee, but he's doing for this coffee client down in Belize. And I've watched David really evolve, because David's collab young, my son, right? Like, and yet he's always come up in a pretty worked Starbucks and worked some jobs that were pretty frameworked. And this is, he had one other job in Montana for a lady named Sandy selling paper products. He was Dunder Mifflin, basically. I always I joke with him all the time about who he was. But in sending him to Belize, I've seen him just this last month catch that same bug, of handed this new level of responsibility of, hey, this thing's going to survive or fail based on how you show up, whereas that's a lot of pressure, you know what I mean? But all three of us know it's when you're given that kind of responsibility, a lot of times, if you're wired for it, you flourish. And I think that those are the kinds of people we're all looking for, right? People that are going to flourish under pressure, who can grow into something better, something else.
Yeah. There's something to say about also given that amount of time and experiences to be able to fail, that sort of build up your confidence later down the road.
Yep.
Being able to mess up so many times that 4 or 5 years later, you're like, if I mess up, I've messed up plenty of times before and I've still made it out and I've still finished the project and I've still moved on successfully. Like, you do have to fail a number of times before you get over the fear of failing. If I mess up, I've done it before, I'll figure out a way to fix it. So there is definitely that it's a certain type of brain, you're right, and who's grown up in the ability to, with the chance to mess up and learn and figure something out, and you repeat that over and over again for a few years, 5-10 years, and all of a sudden what comes out is somebody who's like a Jin, who's like, I don't know what this is, but I can do it. I can figure it out. I figured all this out. I messed up this stuff a lot in the past, but I figured it out and fixed it. Sure, I can do that work for you.
Yeah, fixing those failures, you learn the best. You will learn the most from those.
And really, in all honesty, truth be told, how big was the fail? All of us now, all of us on this call have ran wrong transaction dollars or set up a payment plan where it was get somebody for way too much money. But so you refund it and you apologize and you own it, and then you realize that's never going to happen again. Whatever I just did that time, I'm never going to do that again. Whatever it is that you made that big mistake, that was some of the biggest that had the most financial impact on something. Sometimes those, they hurt, but that's an invaluable teacher. You're never going to learn as well as you learn when something hurts, and you're just yep, not doing that again. And I think that's what helps you to form good decisions in the future, even on things that you walk into new arenas and you're okay, let's look at the lay of the field and make sure I don't step my foot into the wrong trap, because I've been in these fields before and maybe I came in too cocky or too fat in my own ego of what I thought I knew how to do. And I'm going to come in a little bit more attentive this time of, okay, so what else is on the field and what are the variables that I might not know? And how can I think to stay ahead of what are the biggest curves coming at me? And that's always what I'll think about is what's the next thing coming at me fastest, and then how do I need to stay in front of that? And then what are the things that are bigger coming downstream that I need to make sure I at least seed the steps to stay in front of it when it comes. And I think, failure is painful, but it's our best teacher.
And if you could find a way to ask the perfect question in an interview that pulls that character quality out of somebody, you could build a gold mine of a team in a company if you could just always find those people. I mean, I don't know if it takes multiple conversations. I'm not a recruiter, but if you could find an easy way to find that in somebody, if you're recruiting, that'd be tremendous.
A lot of times we'll ask, and I got it from Steve Harward on one of when we were interviewing, actually Eliza, when we had Eliza on just a couple weeks ago. Steve rolled up with it at a question. She was one of our final applicants for the EA position that was filling for the CEO. He's the CEO. And he said, something I always like to ask in interview questions is, what's your greatest, it's a two-part question. What's your greatest superpower? And then what's a vulnerability? Like, what's something you're still working on, and hearing people talk about themselves. Like, I remember him saying that wasn't on my list of questions. Like, I'm so tactical. I'm so like just operational. I'm like, can you do the job? Have you done the job? Are you going to be good at the job? Like, I don't always think out of the box like that, but it was a good push for me into some, hey, let's talk about some character stuff. And it's always interesting because now I use it in every interview I do. It's always something I use in every recruiting opportunity because you learn a lot about people. Because the people that lean heavy into telling you their strengths, but don't like talking about their weaknesses, I'm always like, I'm not sure about you, but the people that will lean into, hey, so here's a vulnerable share. This is the things I've learned. This has been a hard thing and it wasn't easy, but this is what I learned out of it. I always feel like I have more respect for those people that are like, hey, let me show you something that I've been working on and I'm not perfect at it yet, but I've really grown through this. And so I think there is a lot to be said about people that will just be humble enough to answer the hard questions and what have you learned and how are you growing, and especially how are you going to own failure, because all of us are going to fail, right? None of us are going to hit it 10 out of 10, so how do you handle failure? And for me, for our team at the CoLab team, I think part of our ethos is ownership and follow through, right? That you're going to own something, you're going to follow through. So even if you fail, I just want you to own it. Just tell me that you made a mistake and then we can all get through this together. But if you try and hide it or couch it or repackage it or like hand it off as something else or blame it on someone else, I feel like that's indicative of a character thing that I'm like, I don't know if I want that in my team long term if you can't just own when you make, mistakes. So
I think that shows somebody who's afraid of their failures versus somebody who accepts the fact that they're going to fail and learn from it. And if you have somebody who's consistently afraid of their failures, they're going to constantly be in a position where they're trying everything they can do not to fail, which means they're not going to be stretching what they're thinking about. They're not going to be trying to be innovative. They're just going to be like, I can do a widget because I know this widget I don't fail at. I'm the best at making this one thing. If I try anything else, I'll probably fail, and that's too scary. But like we said, you want somebody who's going to be a thinker, who's going to be like, how could I change this up? I might fail, but I'm not afraid of that because I'm confident in myself knowing that if I do fail, I'll learn from it, I'll fix it, and I'll learn from it, and I'll move on. That's the kind of person I think you want in your organization.
There's a book from Maxwell I'm looking forward to reading here pretty soon called Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn.
That's
So,
good.
because you never lose, you just learn.
Very well put.
And I will say, like, to the point of, okay, so what are you afraid of in failing? Like, I think asking some of those hard questions about, okay, so what is it, just your ego? Are you afraid of looking dumb? Are you afraid of like, what are you most afraid of in the fail? You know what I mean? Instead of realizing, no, like Taryn just said, it's a learning, like this is my opportunity to learn, is when something fails, I'm going to make it better. I think that's a really good perspective to look at it is.
You learn nothing from being right.
You learn how to be an ass is what you learn how to be, right? Because and none of us like those guys that just like always feel like they're right. Nobody likes that. I want to tell me about the hard things and tell me what you learned out of it, because that's going to save me pain on my own. And I think the danger for a widget maker is, what about when they change the widget? What about when that becomes, retired? What happens when that they're not delivering mail on horseback anymore? No, actually they found a faster mode now. So if that's all you ever knew how to do, like what I always think about the evolution of things. I mean, so what happens when they move away from like everything had to come up river on a steamboat? Oh no, they actually found out they can use trains now. Like all like the change of technology is, especially for us, it comes so much faster. It's not like that. It took like 50 years, 100 years, but our era changes so fast. Don't be a widget maker, be a free thinker, and be willing to fail and be willing to learn. I think that Gian was a great example of that. And I think he's done so well for himself. So congratulations to Gian, amazing in John Acuff's organization. And gents, I hope you guys have an amazing Merry Christmas. I hope it's a great Christmas holiday for you guys. And I hope everybody that's watching on Ops Experts Club, you have an amazing Christmas as well. And we'll see you next week on Ops Experts Club.
You too. See you later, y'all.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.